This one's been coming up a lot, especially since the market started to really sink. Deborah asked, is our money safe in the bank right now? Are the big banks safer than the smaller banks? Sharon, how would you respond to Deborah?
Well, the first thing that you have to make sure, which is that it's in an FDIC insured bank. Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation is the corporation that's going to keep your money safe. Your savings account, your checking account, your money market deposit account, and your CDs. And yes, big banks, Chase, Citi, they have this FDIC insurance for these accounts, but some smaller banks and online banks do as well. You need to go to FDIC.gov, go to the Bank Find app there, and look to see whether or not your bank has that FDIC insurance to ensure that your money is safe. Up to $250,000 per deposit account is usually the amount that's insured. And so you want to make sure that you have that type of insurance on your money to make sure that your money is safe.
Hey, Ron, real quick response before we move on. The banks have been going through various forms of stress testing over the years to make sure they could withstand some kind of financial crisis. I know the rules about that have changed over time, but shouldn't the banks be able to handle this based on the fact that they were supposed to go through all these tests?
Well, they're certainly better capitalized than they were going into the crisis of 2008. They have liquidity relative, again, to normal circumstances. The key question here is whether or not, and it's not like 2008 where the banks are the locus of this crisis. We have a healthcare and a global economic crisis that is weighing on the financial system. So the banks, generally speaking, are well capitalized. The Federal Reserve is backstopping them entirely to make sure they have enough liquidity to meet any kinds of demands that might come from customers, and even to extend more loans to small businesses once this package from Congress gets passed. So the banks, as far as we know, are fine. This is not 2008. This is a much different type of crisis. Again, healthcare and economic crisis leading the financial markets, the exact opposite of what we saw about 12 years ago.
Speaking of crises, Sharon, we got a lot of questions and stories from people who are in various forms of economic crises. Again, this is not a substitute for your own financial advisor, but here's a question we got from an anonymous viewer. My dad is losing his life savings. Also, he may not live through 2020 due to illness. Should he cash out, or should the money be left where it is and go to his kids and hopefully recover from this financial disaster? Tough question. Sharon?
It is a very tough question, and it's a question that really has to be answered by the father and his family. But there are a couple of things to keep in mind. For anyone who's thinking about cashing out right now, it's important to go back and review, reevaluate what your financial obligations are. And so if you're able, in this case, if the father's able to cover medical expenses, to cover living expenses for the time that he has, then there's no reason to cash out of the market. Every financial advisor will tell you that cashing out now in a down market, you're going to lock in losses. And on top of that, if it's in a taxable account and you do still have some profits in there, you're going to get a tax hit there. So I think it's very important for investors to consider why they're cashing out. Do they really need those funds right now? And for the family that may want to see if the father can pass this along, this is where estate planning comes in. That might be a great idea. If you want to make sure that that's done correctly, you need to work with a estate planning attorney, make sure that the proper trusts are set up, and define these people, because you do need to have your own.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.